Hello people of the old world, and welcome to this Total War Warhammer army movement guide. If you're new to the Total War series, I think you'll find this particularly useful. Or if you're struggling to manage your troops and wondering about the best way to go about certain things, this may be for you. And if you are one of those that's new to the series, you may watch this video and think, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of controls to remember. Well, you don't really need to remember them all. I'd say most people probably try out all the different controls, all the different shortcuts, all the different ways of doing things, and then they pick one they like and use that way from there. So don't think that you need to memorize every single one of these controls that I'm about to show you. It's simply a case of picking and choosing the ones that are most effective for the way you play. So let's get down to business. Right then, so here's my beautiful army. We're first going to look at different ways of selecting units. So let's start with some ways to select your entire army. There's the obvious drag box method. I'm sure we all know about this. You just drag it and anything inside the box gets selected. Left click anywhere in space to deselect units. Then we have Control A, which selects your entire army. So pretty much just those two ways are the best ways. And now if you want to select individual units, then you just simply click on the unit card or on the physical unit. We all know this. Okay. Well, what if we want to select multiple units? All you have to do is hold down Control and do the same thing. See, I can click multiple units and it doesn't deselect the previous one I clicked. What about if I want to select a certain chunk of my army? A few units of the same type, perhaps. All we do is left click, let's say Unit A, hold Shift, left click Unit B, and all units in between on the unit cards will be selected. You can see it selected my front 5 units. This also works on the physical units themselves. Select Unit A, go up to Unit B, Shift left click, and all units in between will be selected. Pretty handy for selecting your front line. Now a few shortcuts for selecting unit types. Control I will select all your infantry. That includes any melee fighter on foot, spears, axes, swords, and if you have an infantry lord, him too. And then we have Control M, which will select all your missile units. This can be handy if you need to pull them out of trouble in a pinch. And then we have Control C, which will select all your cavalry. So if you need to get your horses all somewhere, you can. And Control B will select all your artillery, if you should have some. Not that that's going to need to go anywhere quickly, because it can't. The home key selects your general or lord. So if it says he's under attack and you need to find him quickly, the home key's got you covered. So that's all your keyboard shortcuts for selecting certain unit types, but how many of them are useful? Probably not that many. In most cases there won't be a situation where you want to drag, say, all your cavalry to one place. You'll usually have them split up. And the same is true of infantry. But for moving missiles, artillery and your lord, I think they're pretty damn handy. So now that we know how to select all these units, let's look at ways of moving the units. One of the quickest ways to move your entire army in their current formation is to hold down Alt, then hold the left mouse button over any unit and you can see my cursor change and it becomes a draggable form of the current formation. And they freely move to your destination. If you do the same thing, Alt, left click, move it around, hold Control, and you can rotate the army on its point. You can also achieve the same thing by holding Alt and the right mouse button to rotate on a point. This is great for turning to face an army that's moved off to one side. You don't have to redrag and reposition your entire army and end up messing with unit depth. Now all this stuff on the right here, you can select all the indicators, the effects, the unit roster stuff. You can turn it on and off nice and simply. This is a nice touch, I think. Makes life a bit easier for getting the clutter off the screen that you don't personally want. And you can find this by holding down the spacebar. We can also move units with the arrow keys. Forward, left, right, back, wherever you want to go. These can be useful if you only want to move units a tiny bit in certain directions. Now of course all this stuff applies to single units or just a couple of units. Let's say we've got someone coming up over here. I want to rotate these cavalry to keep an eye on them, just in case they try to charge us, so we can use those methods just to turn the cavalry where they are, nice and easy. Or I could use the arrow keys, do the same thing. So these can be useful to you, but the simplest way, and you can achieve exactly the same thing, is just to box drag select, and then drag to rotate as you please. That's probably the quickest way, the least thought processing way of moving units quickly on the fly. Now let's say I want to send off a unit on a super secret special mission through the woods to attack from the rear. I could grab them, hold Shift, you'll see the cursor change, and then right click, drag the custom route that I want them to take. Then release, and they'll follow said route. This can be really useful for flanking, telling units to go around other units to get behind or to the sides. I'm not sure what's going on here. This is an interesting formation. I want to actually see if they stand there. Let's find out. Yeah, they're going to stand there. Okay, that's a new formation. That's different. I like it. Mavericks. Okay, let's not ever do that again. A simple but effective one now. So you know when you drag your units, they'll automatically run to the destination. You can see that by the double arrow. If you hold control, do the same thing, they will walk to their destination. So if you want to walk your army somewhere, hold control when giving the order. Now let's take a look at groups and what we can do. If you select the units you want, press G, it will put them in a group. There's two kinds of group, locked and unlocked. If you put them in a locked group, hold the right mouse button and you can move them to wherever you want in the formation that they were in when you pressed G. So this can be useful for moving your army up initially, but when the battle begins your units are going to be kind of all over the place and this formation will become redundant. But this can be useful if you say send off a couple of units. There's some cavalry coming in from the left. I'm going to send my cavalry to go and attack them. Now my army's a little bit out of formation because the horses aren't there. So all I can do is press 1, which is the number group for this group. It will select the group, which is the entire army in this case, and put them back into the formation that they were in when I pressed G. So the horses go back to where they were. Now what is the point of an unlocked group, I hear you cry? Well, it's only really to select a whole bunch of units. If you try to drag them, they're not in any kind of formation, they're just next to each other like that and it's all just a mess. So unlocked groups are only for selecting groups of units quickly. You can put your army into a couple of preset formations, missile front and melee front. These can be good if you just want to set up a basic formation. They will also put you in a locked group straight away. They're also useful if you've got units all over the place. Let's just say you've been having a fight, they've retreated, now you've got time to recover. You can grab all your units, select one of these formations, and bang, you're straight in a formation, no questions asked. You can also move this formation as a adjustable depth formation, which leads me to my next point, which is also a bit of a curiosity. There seems to be two different kinds of locked group, one that is adjustable and one that is not adjustable. So if I select my army, press G, put them in a locked group, I can move them in formation, but I can't adjust the depth by dragging. But if I put them in a formation locked group, that you would think would work the same as the previous group type, but it's draggable now and I can adjust the depth as I wish. So that's an interesting little thing I noticed. Thought it might be worth knowing, so keep that in mind. Now one thing you can try out and see if it works for you is to put different parts of your army in different little groups. So my missiles are going to be group 1. I'm going to have my cavalry on the left as group 2. And then I'm going to have my cavalry on the right as group 3. And then all these boys in the middle, spears, swords, great swords, they're going to be group 4. They're my front line. So from that you can move sections of your army really quickly just by pressing the number keys. Group 2 over there, group 3 over there, group 1 I'm going to pull you back because the enemy's coming, group 4 you're going to move up to attack the enemy. Bang. I've just moved my entire army in 4 different directions in the space of like 10 seconds. So it can be useful if you can learn to play that way. I don't personally, but I think I can see some advantages in it. I may have to experiment. Now then, let's talk a bit about battle lines or front lines. First off, of course, if we're in an unlocked group, we're in an adjustable formation, which is fine if you want to adjust a formation, but we can't attack how we want to out of an unlocked group. So, lock up your group, and then you've got all your units selected, you can move them, but they're stuck in formation, but that's fine. And what we're going to do is a single right click on my enemies in the distance, and you'll see 6 different lines have appeared, which means they're all going to march up and they'll automatically choose different targets when they get in range. Let me show you this in a more controlled environment. So I've got my 4 units. If I have them ungrouped and I give them an attack order on one unit, they will all attack that one unit. Not what we want. If I put them in a group that is unlocked, I will get the same thing. Click one unit, they all attack that one unit. Not what we want. Put them in a locked group. Select one unit around the middle of the army. If you select it off to the right, they'll go off to the right, or the left, they'll go off left. So around the middle of the army, and they will march up 4 different lines, looking for 4 different targets. So that's what you want if you're looking to move up your battle lines. You can see they're all walking up together, they're not walking up separately. So this is a good way to move your battle lines up, and what they'll do is they'll walk, because I did a single right click, they'll walk until they get closer and then they'll charge, and I don't have to do anything, it's automatic. If I double right clicked, they would run from where they are, which of course if you're a long way away you're going to get fatigued, so that's not a good idea. But in a lot of cases you probably want to set them to run sooner, because otherwise you're going to take range stuff like this magic attack, for example. I don't know why I gave the enemy a shaman, but there you go. It means you can have time to do other things with the rest of your army, so if your cavalry needs some assistance you can go and sort them out, all the while your front line will be marching up to attack. So these boys are moving up, they're nearly in range now, they haven't started charging yet. I did give the enemy a couple of missile units here because I wanted to see what my units auto-attacked, whether they'd intelligently choose to attack the melee units rather than the skirmishers, or whether they just attack what's in front of them. So it looks like they're in range now, they've picked their targets. There's a unit going off to the left, these boys are going for them. They're going for the skirmishers. Okay, so you see here, these two units have badly chosen. They're both going after the skirmishers. They haven't chose separate units. They're attacking the same unit, so that's not good. So with this, you do have to be careful and keep an eye on who your units target, because things like this can happen. It's very unnecessary for two units to be attacking skirmishers. So it can be good just to walk them up there with the auto attack ready, and then when they get in range, select the units for yourself. That's a safer way, making sure you get the good matchups. Otherwise, if you get bad matchups, just letting the computer do it, it could be the end of you. Now there's a few other little shortcuts and things that are just good to know. So as we know, a single right click will walk our unit to our destination. If you press R, it will make them run. It does the same thing as the run button down here, but it's right next to our WASD, so it's really simple and easy to press. Same is true of melee mode. If you press F, you can toggle melee mode. This is obviously only for skirmisher cavalry and things, but you can turn on melee mode just by a simple press of F, which is right next to D, so it's really easy. They can be useful for just saving a bit of time in your micromanaging world. Then of course there's Halt down here, which can be done with backspace, but backspace is a little more out of the way, so sometimes pressing this button down here instead of pressing backspace can be easier. And then there's a group button, but that's probably easier done with G. Then we have the guard mode button. This is pretty useful because it will stop your units from chasing after units that you ordered them to attack. So let's say I want to get a charge in on a certain unit, I click to give the order, they engage, my unit wins and the other enemy routes and runs off. My unit without guard mode will then chase that unit. That's not what you want, so with guard mode they won't chase them. Same with skirmishers. Let's say there's a certain unit coming in, I'm focus firing on that unit routes, runs off over here. Without guard mode, all these skirmishers will run off that way after them, which is just a pain in the ass and can cause you a lot of problems. So with guard mode on, they won't run after them, they'll just focus fire and then leave it there. This can be useful for all unit types. Another little cheeky trick, you can issue a one-time melee attack order. So if you've got a skirmisher unit, like skirmisher cab for example, if you hold Alt, you see it changes to a sword, my cursor. Crosshair sword, crosshair sword. So if I issue the attack when it's a sword, they will melee attack them, but they won't be in melee mode. Useful if you attack some infantry skirmishers with cavalry. And one final thing on just how to cancel an order. Let's say you've dragged and, oh no, I don't want to make that move anymore. Just press escape and it will all go away. You can do the same thing. Drag to make your order. Don't want to do it. Drag your mouse off the bottom of the screen and the order goes away. So there you have it, most of your Total War Warhammer army movement controls. As I said earlier, you don't have to memorize all of these controls that I just showed you. Try them all out, by all means. See which ones work for you, see what you like, see which is most efficient for your playstyle, and then roll with it. So I've been Zerkovich, you've been the viewer, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more Total War Warhammer videos, guides, online play, campaigns, whatever your bag is. I'll probably do it. Now go and move your army efficiently.